Okay, so to do this process of completing the square, one of the biggest things that we need to talk about is we need to talk about knowing what x squared means. All right, that's like x times x. And if we have something that's like x squared equals 16, then the square root of x squared is equal to the square root of 16. Because what we do to one side of the equation, we got to do to the other side of the equation. So a thing to know is when you take the square root of a squared, it's basically like both of those things cancel. All right, you're just left with what's under the square root, which happens to be x, and the square root of 16 is plus or minus 4. So your answer here is a positive 4 and a negative 4. Okay, so kind of using that in the back of our mind. All right, we're going to try to get everything to be x squared equals just a number. So on number 1, the first step in getting that process, x squared equals a number, is I need to add 4 to both sides. Add 4 to both sides. I get 3x squared is equal to 72. Okay, and then continuing on down here, all right, to get x squared by itself, we can divide by 3. And I get that x squared is equal to 3 goes into 72. Let's see. I believe that is 34. Let me double check on my calculator right here. 72 divided by 3. 24, excuse me. 24. All right, and then when we have an x squared, we just take the square root of both sides. So x is equal to positive or negative whatever the square root of 24 is. Okay, it should be around kind of 4 point something, probably 4.9 something, somewhere in that range. Okay, so let's look at 1a. You can hit pause, try this one on your own as well. So hopefully you've done this on your own, but you know that the first step is to add 20 on both sides. You got 4x squared equals 36. We see that we can divide both sides by 4. I get that x squared is equal to 9. And when we take the square root of that to get x by itself, we get that x is equal to positive or negative 3. Okay? So we're good to go on that. So these are helping you figure out, on your equations, you got positive 3, negative 3, okay, on the graph. And that graph is some kind of parabola shape. All right, going up because x squared is positive. Okay, all those things that we've talked about in the past still apply in this case. And the whole point of this is we are trying to find these zeros. We're trying to find what x is. All right, so we're trying to find those zeros when given something that's not in just the factored form with x in the parentheses. Okay, so number 2, when I'm using completing the square principles, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, is that able to be factored? I notice that, hey, yes it does. 5 times 5 is 25, and negative 5 plus negative 5 is also negative 10. So this can factor to be x minus 5 and x minus 5. Okay, and that's equal to 27 here. This can be rewritten, all right, as x minus 5 squared equals 27. Okay. At this point, this is where one of your homework problems starts, or where it begins. All right, so what we can do is take the square root of both sides, the square root of 27. Okay, and we can solve that. That gets my squares to cancel. X minus 5 is equal to positive or negative square root of 27. All right, and then to solve for x, we just need to add 5 to both sides. So x is equal to plus or minus square root of 27 plus 5. And then that one is completed. That one is done and over with. Okay, so again, try 2a on your own and see how you do. Hopefully you've tried this. All right, you notice that this factors to be x plus 4 squared equals 49. we're going to take the square root of both sides. You get x plus 4 equals plus or minus 7. All right, and then subtracting 4 is the last step. Okay, so really you have two cases here. You have positive 7 minus 4, and you have x equals negative 7 minus 4. So in one case, x is equal to positive 3, and in the other case, x is equal to negative 11. Okay, and that one should be good to go. Okay, so right here, so to complete the square, all right, what do we mean by that? Okay, we're trying to complete this in this process. Here you're going to take whatever the b value is, you're going to cut it in half. And you're going to take whatever that answer is and you're going to square it and plug that in as your new c value. And that's this thing at the end that is in the box. So here we're going to take our b value, negative 2, divide it by 2. That's the cutting it in half part. What does that give me? That gives me negative 1. I'm then going to take negative 1 and square it. Negative 1 times negative 1. And that gives me a positive 1. Well, this positive 1 is going to go in the place of my new c value. So, completing the square right here, I got x squared plus or minus 2x plus 1. Okay, that would be all that I would need to do on problems like this that just ask me to figure out what this shaded box is. The reason why we do this is it helps us figure out the factors. This factors really easily to be x minus 1 times x minus 1, which is x minus 1 squared. Okay, and that's going to be very beneficial as we go through and solve problems. Okay, look at number 4. So again, same process. We're going to take 5 divided by 2. Okay, and then we're going to take that and square it. Okay, and that's going to give me 5 times 5 is 25. 2 times 2 is 4. So this new c value is 25 over 4. Okay, well, how does that factor? Okay, well, obviously this piece right here, these numbers that I squared, those are our factors. So this would factor to be x plus 5 over 2. All right, and x plus 5 over 2. All right, or this could be x plus 5 over 2 squared if we were trying to do that. Okay, now let's look at another example. Okay, now in these other examples, all right, what we're going to end up having to do is we're going to try to put all these pieces together. So all these ideas of solving that we've done all the way through, and we're going to try to use the completing the square process to do that. Well, in order to complete the square, I really need for my problem to look like that. All right, and so what I notice here is I have my x squared, but I have no b right next to it. And so the biggest thing that we got to take care of is we got to move this negative 6x, and we got to move it over here, okay, to be with the x squared. So what does that look like? All right, well, let's come over here and see. When that negative 6 comes over, it becomes a positive 6x. Okay, we have a plus the blank here equals 27. Now, when an equation is involved, all right, and if I ever add something in on this side of the equation, in order to keep it equal, in order to keep it balanced, I must also add the same thing in over here on this side. All right, so we're just going to keep that in mind. This is another step in completing the square to help us figure out what x is going to be. So again, we're going to take our b value and cut it in half. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. And so 9 goes in here. 9. And 9 also goes in our blank on the end down here. So my new problem, so to speak, is, let's see, we have x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals, and then 27 plus 9, so that's equal to 36. All right, and so how would this work out? How would this help me out in my situation? So this is going to factor to x plus 3 squared equals 36. All right, and how would that work? Let's see. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. That gives me x plus 3 equals positive or negative 6. And so obviously your last step here would be to subtract 3. So x is equal to positive 6 minus 3, and x is equal to negative 6 minus 3. And so in one case, x is equal to positive 3. In the other case, x is equal to negative 9. Okay, it doesn't really matter which order those go in. Okay, let's look at our number 6. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this easier on myself, since all of my problems always have a 1x squared in front. What I do notice is that every coefficient in here, every number in front of, or just every regular number, is also a multiple of 2. So what I can do is, before I begin anything, I can divide everything in this problem by 2. Okay, and that's going to give us kind of a new problem here. All right, new result is x squared plus 4x. I'm going to leave a blank here to complete that square. Equals 12 divided by 2 is 6. And I know that whatever I use in that blank, it's also got to go on this side of the complete the square type problems. Okay, so let's think about, all right, what do we have? So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4, so 4 goes here, and 4 goes here. So plus 4 plus 4. So out to the side, I'm going to rewrite everything. All right, x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 6 plus 4 is actually 10. All right, and so let's see how this would help us out, how that would get things going. This factors very simply, all right, to be x plus 2 and x plus 2, or x plus 2 squared equals 10. And so your next step is just taking the square root. That gets everything to cancel. I have x plus 2 is equal to positive or negative square root of 10. All right, and we can go from here. So subtract 2. So x is equal to plus or minus square root of 10 minus 2. Okay. And last but not least, we got number 7. So again, I want number 7 to follow this pattern. So we want it to look like plus a blank equals some number plus another blank. Okay, well, I noticed that this is equal to 0 on this other side, and there's nothing over here. Okay, so very easily something that I can do is move this 13, negative 13, over to the other side. All right, and so that number in this case becomes a positive 13 when we add 13 to both sides to get that to cancel and leave an open blank, open spot. Okay, so that helps me out. That helps me be able to complete this square. Okay, so we take 10 divided by 2, which is 5. We're going to take 5 squared, which is 25. And so again, that goes there and that goes there. Okay, so 25. 25. And so I'm just going to rewrite to the side. 10x plus 25 equals whatever 13 plus 25 is. So what is 13 plus 25? 13 plus 25 is 38. Okay. Now again, why did we complete the square? We completed the square to get this to factor. All right, to get this to factor on this side to be x plus 5 squared. Okay, and then that is equal to 38. And now we can square root both sides, get the squared to cancel. X plus 5 equals positive or negative square root of 38. And the last step, subtract 5. So x is equal to positive negative square root of 38 minus 5. Okay, or you could really think of this as positive square root of 38 minus 5, or the negative square root of 38 minus 5. Okay, if you wanted to write all that out, that's fine. or you could just use this positive negative action right there with those types of problems. Okay, so biggest thing going through on your homework is just getting it into the completing the square form, the completing the square type.